What is going on, everybody? Jacob West, Papa West, here to talk some sports. It is TMG Takes the Field, episode number 2. I'm very excited to continue to be doing this and hopefully continue for a long time. We will see. I'm also doing this live to help get some interaction out there too, instead of me just reading off a list of stuff I want to talk about. This way, you can be like, Papa, what are your thoughts on this? Papa, what's your thought on this? And if it's something like cricket related, I really don't care. But we'll see how it works. We'll think about it going forward, as we do everything. But just a couple things that I want to go over first. I completely forgot to get ready for this. Breaking news in the world of sports. This is the only time I get to talk about the NFL. So, of course, I'm going to talk about some NFL stuff. Biggest news just came out today. Dallas Cowboys defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence probably going to miss 6 to 8 weeks due to his broken foot injury that he sustained against the Buccaneers in a slobber knocker of a match Thursday night. That is a huge loss. That defense, it's the best that they've looked in years. Especially last year, they had one of the worst defenses in the leagues. So having that loss, huge. Will it affect them? I don't know. They do have a pretty easy schedule. I'm going to go over and find it real quick. I know they don't really have a lot of division games coming up. A lot of the NFC East division games are coming towards the end of the year, which is normal that you have most of your games at the end of the year, but kind of a little weird that that's the way it worked out. So they have the Chargers this upcoming Sunday, followed by the Eagles, Panthers, Giants, Patriots, Vikings, Broncos, and then Falcons. It's kind of in that time frame. So they don't have the hardest schedule in the world, but those are some. They do have some high-powered offenses that they will be going up against. So it could definitely be a difference maker and really could hurt that team, especially because they looked really good last time we saw them. Probably not going to look as good, but that has yet to be. That we'll look at later on down the road. Also, breaking news, USC fired their head coach. This isn't breaking news because they did it over the weekend. One of the bigger names associated with taking that job would be Urban Meyer, who just recently retired from coaching college football and then just a couple months ago took the job for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a lot of people thought he would probably pull Nick Saban like he did with the Dolphins and just quit on the team randomly to go back to college. He has said that he will not be going to USC and taking that job. Nick Saban said the same exact thing when that issue happened. So if that's the case, we'll see. But really, only time will tell on that one. That's really it for breaking news. Again, if you have something that you want to talk about, throw it in the comments, and we'll talk about it later on down. If it is breaking news, sweet. If not breaking news, that's sweet too. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to the NBA. Just like last week, not a ton to talk about because we are currently in the off season. One thing I did want to talk about is that the NBA did announce 9 nominees for the Hall of Fame. I'll go ahead and read off who has been nominated, kind of some of their accolades. So we have Rick Edelman, 2-time NBA champion and 11. Looking at the wrong part of that. He is the 9th winningest coach in NBA history, one of the better NBA coaches ever to coach the game. Now we're going to go to the 2-time NBA champion and 11-time NBA All-Star, Chris Bosh. The website that I'm using has their accolades and then their name, as opposed to their name and then their accolades, like a lot of stuff, a lot of people tend to do. So yeah, Chris Bosh, of course, NBA champion with the Miami Heat when LeBron James uh, joined. Him and Dwayne Wade were the two, not Dwayne Wade, him and LeBron were the two biggest signings. Of course, Dwayne Wade was already on the team, but they both went to Miami. Made it to 4 straight NBA finals, lost 2 of them. One was because of the German god Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks. The other one was the 4th one in that little run. They lost to the San Antonio Spurs, but they did beat the Spurs the year before, and then the Thunder the year before that. And then also an 11-time NBA All-Star. Say what you want about All-Stars. I've never made one, so the fact that he made it is definitely a good feat. Also joining him, NBA Finals MVP and 10-time NBA All-Star, Boston Celtics legend Paul Pierce, which of course was the super team that caused LeBron to leave Cleveland the first time and go to Miami. Paul Pierce, almost a lifelong Boston Celtic, did leave the team towards the end of his career, kind of like Michael Jordan did. I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan, but when they had Ray Allen, was it Ray Allen? Yeah, Ray Allen was in that big 3, and then Kevin Garnett. Definitely formed a massive super team there. The first black NBA head coach, Bill Russell, is in the NBA or a nominee for the NBA Hall of Fame as well. 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year and NBA champion, Ben Wallace. Of course, Detroit Pistons superstar over there. One of my favorite championship series was when they beat the Lakers, because at that time I hated the Lakers. And so watching them lose to an unknown Detroit Pistons team, weird to call them unknown, but really they were a huge underdog throughout most of those playoffs. That was fun to watch. 5-time NBA All-Star and NBA Rookie of the Year, Chris Webber. Really an underrated player, Chris Webber. He played a lot of his career with the Kings. One of the best Kings teams that was ever out there, with Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, Peja Stojakovic. Coached because they were the Kings, couldn't really do anything. So, 2-time NCAA national champion and current head coach for the Villanova Wildcats, who is also the team that he coached to the NCAA finals, Jay Wright. So I believe this is one of the only times that an NBA or a basketball person who was still part of an organization in either coaching or a player being nominated to the Hall of Fame. Occasionally get some like front office people who played or coached, but then kind of took a step back. So they're eligible for the Hall of Fame. Jay Wright, pretty sure he's still coaching. And so while he's coaching, being thrown in there. And then we do also have 2 women, 7-time WNBA All-Star and 2-time Olympic gold medalist Yolanda Griffith, and 7-time WNBA All-Star and 3-time WNBA MVP Lauren Jackson. I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how the NBA Hall of Fame works. I know most you get voted in, most amount of votes, or you have to get like a certain amount to actually make it. Really, of all that list, I'm going to be honest, I don't watch WNBA, so I could not tell you about Yolanda Griffith or Lauren Jackson. But of the men's side, Chris Bosh would be the only person I could see not making it. Maybe also Jay Wright. But definitely well-deserving from everybody. A couple other big news from the world of the NBA. The Houston Rockets and point guard John Wall are looking for a trade. John Wall was traded to the Houston Rockets whenever the Rockets gave the Washington Wizards Russell Westbrook. John Wall, good career. One big thing is he got a really big contract and then immediately quit playing as well. So a lot of people said that he would never get traded because no one ever wanted that contract. And it's maybe looking like that's the case. Of course, he's not as good as he once was. Definitely one of like the biggest threats as a point guard. Also, a really great 1 year career in college with the University of Kentucky. But yeah, he is looking to be traded. Another big kind of free agency contract stuff. Aaron Gordon and the Denver Nuggets agreed to a 4 year extension. Looks like $92 million worth. Aaron Gordon played with the Orlando Magic, got traded to the Denver Nuggets, I believe, last year. He's most well known for being one of the best dunkers in an NBA All-Star dunk contest. He didn't win because the judges are silly. But he is staying with the Nuggets for at least 4 more years. That's really all. Again, because the NBA season is currently in their off season, we'll kind of get some news just as far as like free agent signings or exactly what we just saw, people wanting a trade and then the team agreeing that they shouldn't be a part of the team anymore. Again, we'll kind of keep track of that as off season goes. Season's starting here in like the next month too, so we'll definitely be covering a lot more NBA once that comes around. And then Major League Baseball. I do have the standings and my personal predictions last week. We're just really going to talk about the differences because I'm not going to go over like every major series and stuff like that. But we talked about the AL East. It was the Rays, Yankees, Red Sox, and then the Blue Jays. And I kind of thought it was going to stay that way. I was wrong. I know. It's surprising. Papa West isn't right 100% of the time. Tampa Bay has stayed in first place. Boston has stayed in third place. But there has been a switch between the second place team and the fourth place team. The Toronto Blue Jays have had a crazy run, and the Yankees have had a horrible run, kind of flipping places there. So Tampa Bay at 90 and 56, Toronto 82 and 64, Boston 83 and 65. Have played 2 more games, lost one, won one, so they have the same winning percentage. Actually, technically, Toronto's is higher, so that's why they are currently in the lead of that. And then New York right behind at 81 to 64. So very close race in the AL East. As far as the Central goes, I only talked about 2 teams because those were the only 2 teams kind of still in it. The White Sox and Cleveland. That has stayed the same. The White Sox at 83 and 61, Cleveland at 70 and 73. So no changes there. And then as far as the AL West, we had the Astros, Seattle Mariners, Oakland Athletics, and then the LA Angels. We've had a little bit of a change there. Nothing major. Houston is still on top. And then Oakland and Seattle did have a little switch. Oakland is in second, Seattle is third, and then LA still in fourth. Houston, 84 and 60. Oakland 77 and 67, Seattle 78 and 68, just like the Rays and they're not the Rays, the Blue Jays. Their names kind of match, and the Red Sox, same winning percentage. The A's are a little bit higher just because they're down 2 games. They haven't played 2 games. And then LA is at 70 and 74. As far as the wild card goes, because I said that it was going to be the Yankees and the Red Sox. And, of course, my phone decided. There we go. Right now, Toronto has the number 1 seed. Boston has the number 2 for the wild card seedings. New York is half a game back. Oakland and Seattle are both 4 games back. So still a pretty tight race for the American League wild card. It's not shaping up as I predicted. Like, nothing shapes up like I predicted. But we do have a while to go. Moving on to the National League, starting off with the NL East. Back last week, it was the Braves, Phillies, and then the Mets. It's exactly the same. It has not changed. It is still the Braves, Phillies, and then the Mets. Braves 76-67, Phillies 72-72, so right at 500. And then the New York Mets are at 72 wins, 74 losses. Also, fun fact, TM Geek Commissioner Kevin Poss is at the Braves game going on right now. So, Kevin, hope you're having fun. I hope the Braves win. Not really sure who they're playing right now because I'm not looking at that at this exact moment. Hopefully they win. I'm pretty sure that's what I predicted for that one. As far as the Central goes, it was the Brewers, Reds, and then the Cardinals. There's actually been a little switch right there. The Brewers are still winning it, 89-57. The Cardinals have bumped up to second place. They're at 75-69. And then Cincinnati, just half a game back, 75-70. So they've had one more game that resulted in a loss. So they are currently half a game back from St. Louis. So it happens. I get stuff wrong, and that was the case. And then as far as the last division, the NL West, it was the Giants, Dodgers, and Padres. You guessed it. It's exactly the same. Giants 95-50, Padres at 93-53, and the Padres 74-70. Also, fun fact, the Giants and the Dodgers have been the first 2 teams in Major League Baseball to clinch a playoff berth. So we will see both of them. Odds are one of them will be the number 1 seed in the National League. Odds are one of them is going to win the division. I don't know. Padres are not going to be able to come back from that. So definitely one of those teams is going to be the division winner. And more than likely, they will be the number 1 seed. It is hard to see. Milwaukee might be able to do it, but it's going to be tough to form that big of a run, especially with that meaning the Giants or Dodgers will have to lose that many games. So the National League is pretty close to my predictions because I'm pretty sure I picked the Braves to win, Brewers, and then I said that the Dodgers were going to win. They're about 2.5 games back from the Giants, so it still could happen. And then, of course, I predicted the Giants and the Reds for the wild card. As far as the wild card race goes, LA, they clinched a playoff berth. They will either be the division winner or the number 1 seed. Right now, St. Louis is in control of that 2nd seed. Cincinnati right behind them by half a game. San Diego 1 game back behind the Cardinals. Philadelphia Phillies are 3 games back, and then the Mets are 4. So just like the American League, just like always, it is a very close race. Well, that's really all I have for Major League Baseball. I'm going to go ahead and move on to NCAA football. As I go on, talk about some of the Week 2 matchups. We won't talk about a ton of them because we are going to be talking a lot about college football here for the remainder of the show. Just a couple that I want to really talk about. Biggest one I'll talk about last. But we did have Coastal Carolina, still that number 17 seed, beat Kansas 49-22. Auburn demolished Alabama State, as they should have. Florida beating South Florida 42-20. Virginia Tech beat Middle Tennessee State University. Notre Dame beat Toledo. Georgia destroyed UAB. No one's surprised. That's exactly as they should have done. A very close game in Colorado as the number 5 Texas A&M Aggies beat Colorado 10-7. Cincinnati Murray State, very close game for the first half. Second half, Cincinnati ran away with it, winning 42-7. Penn State beat Ball State 44-13. Alabama destroyed Mercer 48-14. Clemson beat South Carolina State 49-3. Oklahoma, I said that I was a little worried about them after their game against Tulane. That is kind of a rivalry, so kind of makes sense. They played Western Carolina and destroyed them 76-0. So do I have a reason to be upset, or do I have a reason to kind of be worried about them? Yes, I do. Are they going to be as bad as I thought they were going to be? Probably not. But again, we will see as time goes. Our first upset, University of Texas, number 15, lost to Arkansas 40-21. So Texas, welcome to the SEC. You lost to Arkansas. Wisconsin, the number 18 seed, coming back from the loss against Penn State, winning 34-7. Miami, coming back from their loss against Alabama, beat Appalachian State 25-23. Very close game. Miami's probably not going to be ranked for much longer. Ole Miss at number 20 beat Austin Peay 54-17. North Carolina, the number 24 ranked team, beat Georgia State 59-17. Another upset. The number 21 Utah lost to BYU 26-17. The number 14 ranked USC lost to Stanford 42-28. That was a bad loss, too. That really was not close. And then number 23 seed Arizona State beat UNLV 37-10. And then we did have two games between ranked teams. Iowa State and Iowa, the battle for the Cy Hawk Trophy. Iowa State at number 9, Iowa at number 10. Iowa came out on top, 27-17. And then, for me, the biggest surprise of the week and the biggest upset, the University of Oregon went on to Columbus, Ohio, to take on Ohio State, beat them in a shootout, 35-28. The reason I say this was a surprise, Oregon was without their star defensive tackle, Kayvon Thibodeau, which most people thought as soon as it was announced that he was not going to play. Had he played, Oregon might have had a chance because he wasn't playing. A lot of people thought Ohio State was going to run away with this one. And they did not run away. And then, yes, of course, University of Southern California did fire their head coach, Clay Helton, on Monday after that embarrassing loss to Stanford. A lot of people said Urban Meyer was going to be the biggest candidate for it, which he said that he is not interested in it. So we'll have more about that as that situation kind of unfolds. And then I said I was going to do it last week, so we're going to go ahead and do it today. Still in the realm of the NCAA football, we are going to be predicting conference championship games, conference championship winners. And then I'll also go ahead and predict my 4 finalists for the college football playoffs. Who's going to play who is going to move on to the championship, and who is going to win the championship. I'm also going to write this stuff down because I want to see if I get it right, and we'll see how it goes. I'm only going to be doing major conferences, so Conference USA, Mid-American, Mountain West, stuff like that. Sorry, not going to be talking about y'all today. So I'm just going to go in order of how they appear on ESPN.com's list of standings. We'll go ahead and start off with the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. This, of course, has been Clemson's conference for the last couple of years. We have seen a couple of surprises face them, but it's really been Clemson who has really ran away with that conference. This is going to be one of the conferences where they have a conference championship. So I'll give you who's going to win each division. We have the Atlantic Division and the Coastal Division, and then who's going to win between those two. So starting off with the Atlantic Division, this, of course, is where Clemson is. You also have Florida State, NC State, Louisville, just a couple of big names that are in there. This is a tricky one. Fun fact, in the NFL, you can go 11-6, and all your 6 losses are against everyone in your division who you play twice, and still win the division because you have the best record. In college football, that is not the case. If you have a team that goes 11-1 and another team that goes 10-2, if the 10-2 team has a better conference record, they will win the conference. They will go to the conference championship. They will upend the other team. And so the reason I bring that up, I think this one, the ACC Atlantic Division, is going to come down between Clemson and Florida State. Florida State has had a horrible team the last couple of years. Kevin, I hate to say it, Florida State has been awful last couple of years, really since Jameis Winston left. I kind of was looking to them as a dark horse this year, and I still think that is the case. I don't think they can win out. They're currently 0-2. And really that last loss that they had, because it was a last-second loss against a smaller team, really, had they beaten them pretty handily, I was probably going to pick Florida State. I do think they're going to be the 2 teams in that said division, but I think Clemson is still just too good to lose to Florida State at this moment. So for the Atlantic Division, I do think Clemson will win. I do think both of these teams will win out until they play each other. I do think that will be a good game, a very underrated game, because people are going to be like, oh, Clemson's going to win. Clemson's going to win. That is going to be the case, but Florida State will give them a game. Clemson does still have a very good defense. So I think Clemson will be able to win that game, win out for the remainder of their game into the ACC Championship game, where they will be taking on the winner of the Coastal Division. This is where we have Miami, North Carolina, Virginia, along with a couple other teams. Those 3 are going to be the teams that are in it at the moment. North Carolina, of course, was going to be was people's predictions. They lost to Virginia Tech week 1. Miami, some people like them, which they did turn around and win from their loss to Alabama. I do think this is a very overrated team. Miami was fantastic in the 90s and early 2000s. They really haven't done much since then. They've had a couple flashes in the pan since then, but nothing like what they had. No successes like what they had. I think they will be successful later on down the road. Not this year, though. I do think it'll be between Virginia Tech and North Carolina. Virginia Tech getting that win is definitely going to help them. I do think Virginia Tech will win. So for the ACC championship game, it'll be Virginia Tech versus Clemson. I really want to go Virginia Tech on this one. I have a cousin, Heather. I love you. You're an amazing person. You're a big Clemson fan, and I really want to root against Clemson, but I can't do it. This is really one of the best defenses in college football right now. I do think Clemson will beat Virginia Tech and win the ACC. Next, we're going to move on to the Big 12. Trying to think if because the Big 12 is one of the weird ones. They're like 10 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there are 10 teams in the conference. So they don't have the split as far as the divisions go, but I'm pretty sure they did decide a couple years ago that they were going to have an actual championship game. Yes, that is my. I completely forgot until just right now. Um, the Big 12 is has a great idea that they've just started doing a couple years ago because they are not separated into two divisions. Whenever they first did that initial split, when Nebraska, Texas A&M, a lot of the schools left. Colorado was one of them. But they had quite a bit of teams split from them, so they did not have a division versus division conference championship game, and it actually hurt them a little bit because a couple of years they had teams that should have been in the college football playoffs because some teams had that conference championship win or had that extra game. It really helped them as opposed to Big 10 schools or Big 12 schools. So they decided they would take the number one and their number two seed teams and put them together in a Big 12 championship game. So it's really the only conference where you have the two best teams going against each other. Of course, Big 12, and I'll just go ahead and read because it's just 10 schools. Baylor, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas, Texas, and West Virginia. Really interesting. All of these teams have won a game. There's some conferences, of course, where they have teams that haven't won anything yet, but all of these teams have won. I do think that Oklahoma is definitely going to be one of the teams in there. And yes, I realize, Jacob, you said Oklahoma scared you last week. They played Tulane. Yes, they did, and then they destroyed whoever they played. I just said it a little bit ago. I immediately forgot. I do think Oklahoma's not going to win out. That Texas game is always an interesting game. Iowa State can be tricky sometimes, and so they have some good games coming up. Also, fun fact: Big 12 hardly ever plays defense. I do think Oklahoma will be, if not the number one seed, definitely the number two. Of course, if I can say they're in the championship, they have to be one of the two. I do think they can be the number one seed going into it. But again, I don't think they'll be undefeated. I think you'll see the Big 12 championship game being against maybe two lost teams. Definitely one loss. I don't see any of the teams going undefeated. Um, I'm going to throw a little oddball in there. As you'll know, I'm a TCU fan. TCU is in the Big 12, and I really like him. Max Duggan has been playing very well recently. Of course, they played Duquesne week 1. Not a great team. But then they did play Cal and beat Cal. I do like Max Duggan, just the ability he has to not only throw but run. And then they also do have some dangerous running backs. So I do think it will be TCU taking Oklahoma. I think TCU will have beaten Oklahoma in the regular season. That's just one of those games where you never know, especially with conference championships like that. TCU has always played very well, at least for most of the game. There have been a couple of years where they kind of fell apart towards the end, but they have usually played Oklahoma pretty well. Of course, back in the mid 2000s, Oklahoma was a powerhouse at home. They never lost in Norman until they played Texas Christian University. TCU beat them in Oklahoma, which for a span of 5-6 years had never been done. But I do think Oklahoma will use that momentum or take that anger and win the Big 12 championship game. Next, we are moving on to the Big 10. This, of course, they don't have 10 teams. It's faulty advertisement, I know. This is another team where they do have that division split. So first, we're going to go to the East with Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, and Indiana. There are 5 teams that can win this. Maryland's kind of that sleeper pick. Tua's younger brother plays for Maryland. So not a lot of people are like Maryland's going to win this division. It could happen. It could, probably not, but it could. Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, and then Michigan are going to be the favorites to win that. I'd kind of kick out Michigan State, and so you'd have Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. Michigan, John Harbaugh is trying to prove that he is a legit coach. I do think this will be the first time that he beats Ohio State. I do think he'll finally get that win. However, he's not going to be Penn State. Penn State is who I think is going to win the East. This is another team that has a fantastic defense. Both their games, they played Wisconsin, which does have a very good quarterback. Always has had a great run defense. They blocked 3 field goals on them, held the offense mostly scoreless in week number 1, and then of course they played a nobody school this week, and still had a couple turnovers. Had a really good game. I do think that the Penn State defense is scary, and also a pretty underrated underrated defense that not a lot of people are talking about. I do think that they can win out in the Big Ten and be one of those sleeper teams. At beginning of the year, no one was thinking Penn State was going to be as good as they are, but really pretty good. I think they will win the East. Moving on to the West, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes, Illinois, Purdue, Nebraska, Minnesota, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. I think this is going to come down to Iowa and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, of course, played Penn State week number 1. Very close game, but could not pull it out. And then Iowa, right now the number 5 seed, or number 5 ranked team in the world of college football. It's going to be between these two schools. I do think Iowa is going to hold it out. I do think Big Ten Championship Game is going to be Penn State and Iowa. I just said it. I think Penn State's going to be one of those teams that surprises everybody. I do think Penn State is not only going to win the East, they're going to win the Big Ten. I think they're going to go to the college football playoffs. We'll see. I think it's going to happen. All right, next, I do have to scroll down a little bit because we're not talking about Conference USA or the MAC or the Mountain West. The Pac-12. This is the Pacific Athletic Conference. This is the American Conference. I don't remember what the A stands for, but this is West Coast teams. Again, another team that is, or another division that is North and South. So, as far as the North goes, we have Stanford, Oregon, Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Washington. Washington, everyone thought they were going to make a run this year. They've lost 2 straight games, one against Montana. And I don't remember off the top of my head who they played this week. It wasn't a great school. They're not a great school. They lost. As far as the North goes, I do not think it's a question. Oregon is going to win that division. They outplayed Ohio State, which usually has a great offense. They beat Ohio State without their star defensive player. He's coming back. I do think Oregon is going to pretty handily win out the rest of this year. I do think this is one of the better Oregon teams that we have seen. And no, that is not why I decided to make the color this dark green. So Oregon, I do think, is going to win the North. As far as the South goes, Arizona State, UCLA, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and USC. I do think UCLA is going to win this. I said it last week. Chip Kelly, horrible NFL coach, but he's a very good college coach. Of course, he led Oregon to several conference titles and even a national championship game where they lost, but they played Cam Newton and the Auburn Tigers. I do think he's going to be able to coach the team to win the division where they will play Oregon. I do think Oregon's defense, because Pac-12, we don't really hear a lot about defenses. I do think Oregon's defense is going to be able to stop UCLA, whereas UCLA's defense is not going to be able to stop Oregon's offense. So I do think Oregon will win the Pac-12. And then the last division that we will talk about, this is the Powerhouse division, the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, the one where whoever wins this goes on to the playoffs and usually wins it all. It's just how it works out usually. This is another conference that is split into 2. You have the East and the West. So we will go ahead and start off with the East. Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. South Carolina might make a run. Of course, Zeb Nolan played for them on week number 2, managed to sneak out a win against East Carolina. So way to go, Zeb Nolan. Whether their other quarterback, I have it right here, Luke Doty, whether he is able to return, and if they start him, I don't know. We'll see. I do think this game is going to be between Georgia and Florida, which is usually how this division has gone. Missouri made a surprise one year, but Usually it is between those two. Georgia, after their game against Clemson, just watching that defense was very surprising. I'm not a huge fan of their quarterback. Threw an interception against Clemson, threw an interception in their last game, Western Carolina, I believe it was. But that is a great defense that they have. I do think Georgia will win the East. This is their year to do that, at least. We'll talk about everything else later on down the road. Now we have the West, which, when I tell you these teams, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, how do these teams live? Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and LSU. This is by far the hardest conference to win, or the hardest division to win. The SEC is also one of the hardest conferences to win. And here's why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the division. 5 of them are currently ranked in the top 25. Just strictly divisions, there are a couple divisions that have 2. The Big Ten East has 3. The ACC Coastal has 3. And in the entire Big 12 conference, there are only 2 teams that are ranked. So 5 teams are ranked. They all hate each other very much. I was listening to feature presentations, fantasy film fights where they drafted a football team. And it made me think, hey, if I was on that team, who would I draft for each position? They drafted a quarterback, running back, receiver, defender, and a wild card. My wild card would have been Nick Saban. He plays the LSU head coach in The Blind Side. But I remember watching that and just seeing him pop up. I'm Nick Saban, coach of Louisiana State. Like, that has to hurt. Because, of course, he was the LSU coach, but he has had so much success with Alabama. Has had so much success destroying LSU. He's lost like 4 or 5 times, I think. Has made that big rivalry with Les Miles back when Les Miles was the coach, and then Ed Orgeron really kind of stepped in and was like, "We're gonna kill Alabama every year. I don't care. Alabama's going down." Hasn't had any success until 2 years ago with Joe Burrow. But that is always a fun game, watching Alabama and LSU. Of course, you have Alabama and Auburn, the Iron Bowl. And then Ole Miss, Texas Tech are scary teams. And Arkansas always pops out of nowhere and surprises everybody. Do I think that's the case this year? No. I do think it's going to be either Alabama, Auburn, or Texas A&M. I think those are going to be the 3 schools to watch out for in this division. The only question is, who's it going to be? I'm going to surprise people because I really don't want to go for Alabama. I want to give y'all some interesting entertainment. So that is why I have to think of a team that's going to do it. I think Texas A&M is going to beat Alabama this year. Texas A&M is going to have a better SEC record than Alabama. Texas A&M is going to go on to the SEC Championship Game where they play the Georgia Bulldogs and lose. I do think Georgia is going to win the SEC. Do you like how I had that suspense of Texas A&M, Texas A&M? Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have to throw in just a couple curveballs in there. So I think the division winners this year, or the conference champions this year, Clemson's going to win the ACC. Oklahoma's going to win the Big 12. Penn State's going to win the Big 10. Oregon's going to win the Pac-12, and Georgia is going to win the SEC. As far as playoffs go, playoffs? What you talking about, playoffs? College football decided to do playoffs. There are 4 teams that move on, and until they decide to adopt my idea of where college basketball has a 68-team tournament that takes up all of March, some of April, college football, why don't you do the same? 68 teams. Jigga, there's 64. There are 4 play-in games. So it's 68. I really want to see that happen. I know everyone's going to die. 32 is more realistic. 24, you can make that work also. But I would love to see like a huge playoff tournament like you see in college basketball. Because until you do, teams are going to complain that they did not make it in. Let's talk about those teams that are going to complain because they did not make it in. I've already told you who I think is going to win each conference. So I will go ahead and say who I think the number 1 overall seed, because I think it's more interesting to see who's going to be number 4. I think the team that is going to go number 1 overall is going to be, I want to check one thing first before I do that. There's really not a lot of surprise because it's definitely going to be a conference champion. It has to be a conference champion. Very rarely do you see the number 1 seed not go undefeated. So that is why I think Georgia is going to not only win the SEC, I think they are going to go fully undefeated and be the number 1 seed in the playoffs. You might be thinking to yourself, Papa, why did you take so much time to come up with that? I had to check to see their schedule. Looking at their schedule, the next games that they are playing, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, CHSO. I have no idea what that acronym is. It looks like a very small school. And then Georgia Tech. I'm clicking on it. Charleston Southern Buccaneers. That is the CHSO. Yeah, Charleston Southern. I'm guessing that is a South Carolina school because Charleston is in South Carolina last time I checked, pretty sure. Feel free to correct me in the comments with that one. They're not playing Alabama. They're not playing Texas A&M until the championship, and we'll see. So I do think they have they do have Auburn. They have Florida. So Arkansas maybe be able to surprise everyone. I don't think so, but we'll see. I do think they have a relatively easy schedule as far as SEC schedules go, because the East is easier as far as the SEC divisions go. And then again, they dodged the bullet. They're not playing Alabama. They're not playing Texas A&M. So I do think Alabama. Wow. I do think Georgia will be the number 1 overall seed. Number 2, I think is another team that's going to go undefeated. It's a team that has a pretty easy road. I'm not just saying that um, because everything outside of the SEC is easy. But looking at their calendar, they are playing one ranked team the rest of their schedule, and they might play that team in the conference championship that I talked about earlier. I do think Oregon is going to be the number 2 seed. Their remaining schedule, they have on October 23rd, they're playing the University of California in Los Angeles, the UCLA Golden Bruins, who I also think is going to be the Pac 12 championship game. And that's it as far as ranked teams go. Plus, I think having Ohio State in that early of a game, um, I do think is going to help them because we're seeing Penn State's going to play Ohio State also. And yes, I didn't realize that shit right now, but who cares? Because they have an easier schedule for the rest of the year, I think they're going to be able to use that to their advantage, rack up a crap ton of points against other teams. And also, I do think the fact that Thibodeau did not play with them against Ohio State, the College Football Committee will put that into consideration as, hey, one of their star players who did not play in the game against Ohio State, and they were still able to win. That's amazing. Next is the number 3 seed, I think is going to be Penn State. Now, I will say Penn State does have a really tough road ahead of them. I just pulled up their schedule. This Saturday, they will be taking on Auburn. They will also be playing Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan. So I actually might change that prediction. I'm not going to change this prediction. I already said that was the way this was going to happen. That's the way this is going to happen. I do like Penn State's defense. I think they can win out. I think they can go on and be the number 3 seed. Now, who's to be number 4? As far as conference champions go, you still have Clemson. You still have Oklahoma. You're going to have whoever loses to Clemson. If it's Virginia Tech, North Carolina, both could still kind of be at that like sniffing spot of getting into the playoffs. Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, or heck, even Wisconsin. Because if Wisconsin wins out, or they wouldn't win out. Never mind. Scratch what I just said. And then, of course, you do have Texas A&M, who I think is going to lose the SEC championship game. Auburn and Alabama. They usually, with that 4th game, just usually will throw in, hey, this team should have been, but because they played a tough schedule, you have to throw that into consideration, which is why the College Football Playoff Committee is wrong, in my personal opinion, and needs to be changed to a 64-team tournament. I just want to see it. I want to see it. I do think they're going to throw in an SEC school. I think the fact that Texas A&M made it to the finals, I think is going to go in their favor. Because, again, I think this is going to be the team that beats Alabama. And maybe they can just win out. They do have Auburn. They do have Ole Miss. and Arkansas, and that's their only ranked teams are their division. Screw it, I said it. Texas A&M will be the number 4 seed. So, college football playoffs: Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, and Texas A&M. You of course have Georgia taking on Texas A&M. This is like the second, third time that we have seen a rematch in the playoffs. And plus, I think just because they had that loss in the championship game towards the end of the year, that's going to help them over Clemson, even though both of their games are going to be against the same team. College Football Committee loves to do that. Georgia versus Texas A&M. We've seen this a couple times, where that 4th seed happens to be an SEC school taking on the SEC conference champion. It's happened. Alabama and Georgia have done it. LSU and Georgia. I'm pretty sure that was the year Joe Burrow won. They gave Georgia the 4th seed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comments. Every year it's worked out that the team that is number 1 has moved on. Whenever there's been that rematch, this is not the year that happens. I think Texas A&M is going to shock the world and is going to win the playoff semifinals. Texas A&M is going to move on to the national championship, where they play the winner of Oregon and Penn State. This would be a great game. 2 really good defenses versus 2 pretty good offenses. I said Oregon has a great offense. Penn State's not a great offense, but it's a good offense. I do think Oregon, because Thibodeau's back. Hopefully, I hope he doesn't get super injured. I do think Oregon is going to win. So we're going to see Oregon versus Texas A&M in the college football championship game. The Ducks are going to win it all. Oregon is going to win the college football championship. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Into week 2 of the college football season. Yes, I totally expect everyone to bash me when this is not the case. I will be bashing myself, but it's written down. I have video proof that this happened. I have written proof that this happened. It's not going to happen. It's probably going to happen. Please tell me your thoughts. Who's going to win their respective conferences? Who's going to be in the Final Four? Who's going to win it all? And just, hey, what else do you want to talk about next time we do the show? I'm going to try to go right around every Wednesday, right about that 7:30, 8 o'clock time. My time, 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern. Just really whatever works out. Again, this is only the 2nd episode. Nothing is set in stone, ever. After Dark's kind of set in stone. But if you like this, please like the video. Comment whatever you want to comment. I will be sure to read through them, kind of talk about all that stuff. This week's a little different, but I will make sure to do it on next week's episode. Because I know Matt Beer made a comment that the Bulls are going to win it all. Kevin Poss made a comment about Florida State. I will make sure to read the comments. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. And hey, send me an idea of what you want me to talk about. If you ever want on the show, message me. We'll talk about that also. But yes, if you liked it, please click the little thumbs up button. Subscribe. Share this channel this content with your friends. We do a lot of fun stuff. Because along with this, we do also have the TMG movie battlegrounds where we debate about movies. We are in the process of 2 tournaments going on right now. I'm going to win my tournament. You hear me here first, people. We also have After Dark, the kind of end of week show where Aaron talks about whatever Aaron wants to talk about. The Supernova show, where Colton Roberts talks about nerd stuff. A lot of other stuff just randomly inserted in there. I know Matt likes to throw in a movie review or something like that. Please, if you like the NFL, find the channel Inside the Horseshoe podcast where Matt Beer talks about Colts football, but then invites me, Alec Miller, Bruce, Stephen Boyd, Jonathan Peck, and also, I was about to say, more people. I think I really only missed Kevin and Matty G. So if I miss anyone else, I'm sorry. Where we'll talk about upcoming matchups, performances, or we'll do a fantasy football show. Again, that's the reason I try not to do in-depth NFL analysis on these videos, because I don't want to take away from them. But please give them a follow. And then, of course, TMG Trivia. I run singles and teams. Kevin runs TM Geek. We're having a lot of big stuff happen in both TM Geek and TMG singles. So be sure to watch out for that. But make sure you subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to our other channels. Like us on Facebook. Have a good one. Be safe. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your dad. But I could be your papa.